Okay, to install the spring in the Mega Magnus, you're going to need a Phillips head screwdriver, a small flathead screwdriver for prying the shell apart, and of course your spring. So first things first, I've already removed all of the visible screws and I have them here. I'm going to set them aside. There's one hidden screw underneath the slide. So once you have your visible screws out, you can gently separate the slide like so, and you have one more screw right here. All right. Okay, so this blaster has an internal magazine, and we've seen that before with dart tag blasters, so they can be a little tricky to take apart and put back together, so bear with me here. So we're going to gently split the shell apart. Okay, so we have two springs here which push on the magazine's feed lips, and just take a moment to look at the layout of everything. So we see the magazine spring is hooked on this post. We have the follower riding on these small rails. We have the feed lips, and it looks like they come out, yeah, this will lift out here. So up and forward to remove your feed lip. And while we're here, we're going to remove the magazine follower just so it doesn't pop out when we get at the plunger. So from here, I'm going to try to do this without upsetting most of the trigger mechanism and the locks. So I'm going to pull the catch and lift the plunger out. Looks like it doesn't want to move. There we go. So in here is a prototype spring. You'll notice it'll be a little different than your stock spring, but it's close enough. So we have a floating plunger head. It doesn't have a plunger rod like most blasters. The plunger is just inside. And this is an old prototype spring. I'm going to set that aside. Your stock spring will be quite a bit longer than this. The stock spring is actually longer than the overall travel distance of the plunger head. It's about that long from here to here, and that's okay. That spring just uses a preload to get some extra power. This spring, as you can see, is almost the exact length as the plunger body. So even though it's shorter than the stock spring, it will function identically, except with more power, of course. So we're going to feed that in, make sure it sits down into the plunger head, like that. So you can see I can move the plunger head because the spring is fully inserted. And now we're going to line the breech up with the post on the slide, and we're going to try to gently finesse this back into place. Because this spring is shorter than the stock spring, it's a little easier to reinstall this assembly. So we're going to try and slide it back onto this spring guide. You notice I can't pull the trigger because the locks are engaged. So let me see. There we go. You hit this little gray button here and you can pull the trigger. That'll help you get the plunger body back in place. And that sets in. I'm going to take it back out just so I can show you something. So right here we have these three slots. They're going to line up with these three pegs here. So from my perspective, sort of looking this way, you'll be able to see that very clearly when you go to install your spring. So slide that in. You can see these are lined up inside there. Now we're going to take the front of the breech, compress the spring slightly, line it up with the slide, we're going to double check our plunger body. There it is. Everything looks lined up. I'm going to push the slide forward. Okay. All right, so we can see here, see how it's bowing out right there? So something is out of line. Let me go back, see if we can figure out what that is. Oh, there we go. Okay, so now that's pressed into place. So what happened right there is underneath this lock, there's a slot in the shell that will accept this little square protrusion. So just make sure that's pressed all the way in. And now everything looks aligned. There we go. So we're going to take our dart guide or magazine feed lip, and this peg, the long peg, is going to go into the plunger assembly here. And this short peg is going to drop straight down, just like that. So it comes out like that, and it goes back in. Okay, from here, take our magazine spring and follower. We're going to hook the magazine spring onto this peg. We're going to compress it and line the follower up with its guides. Make sure the spring isn't on top of your accessory tooth. Okay. As you can see, there's a lot of things that can pop out during reassembly. So we're going to very carefully put the top of the shell on. Sort of the moment of truth here. Okay. All right, now you'll see there's a little bit of separation here. That is perfectly okay. That's those two magazine feed lip springs pushing against the shell here. So I know usually with other blasters that don't have an internal magazine, when you see something like this, that's a sign that something's out of place and you have to go back. But in this case, don't worry about it. That's just these two springs here. So from here, we're going to put the hidden screw in first, and that was one of the longer screws. Hidden screw goes here. And I'm going to get the front screw. And let's see, go ahead and get the screw at the front of the blaster at the base of the magazine. And then I'm going to put the slide on. As you could see there, it didn't want to go together, so I just moved the whole assembly back slightly and it popped right into place. So we're going to put in this one screw at the back and then one screw at the front, not the short one. So basically we put in a couple of screws in key areas and we're going to give it a test prime before we go ahead and put everything together, because there's a high possibility that something, when you do this for the first time, something will go wrong. Maybe one of the locks won't trip. So when you're assembling your blaster, just put in a few screws, just enough so you can test fire. All right, and we're good to go. So I'm gonna go ahead, put in the rest of these screws, and take it over to the crony. Thanks for watching.